My Lords, I want to thank the Most Reverend Primate, the Archbishop of York, for his powerful and thought-provoking opening remarks. With any motion this broad, there are multiple angles to discuss, and I agree with many of the points already raised. From individual families to local charities, many bodies in society deserve credit for binding communities together. But one essential group has been largely overlooked, namely the business community. In a few weeks' time, many of us will be heading out of London for Christmas. I'll be returning to Barwick and Elliott, a village on the outskirts of Leeds, less than 20 miles from York Minster. If one considers a village like Barwick as a microcosm of the country at large, it's easy to see the importance of local businesses to community life. With its 3 pubs, 2 grocery stores, a fish and chip shop, a pizzeria, a cafe, a hairdresser, and even a bike repair business, it's a hive of entrepreneurship. In contrast, other villages nearby don't contain any businesses supporting the immediate local community and feel like soulless commutervilles as a result. Why are these businesses important? All too often we forget the invaluable role that local business people play in these communities. The corner shop owner who checks in on your elderly parents and notices when they don't pop in for their regular Saturday newspaper or midweek pint of milk. Or the publican who throws regular social events to bring the local community together, which help alleviate the loneliness of people living alone. Understanding the role that the businesses play in local communities is therefore an essential component to properly understand how to promote social cohesion. And this observation is not limited to villages. As villages grow into towns and towns grow into cities, the important link between economic change and social cohesion becomes even more paramount. And we can tell a lot about the economic fortunes of an area from its architecture. I was in Liverpool in September for the Labour Party conference, and yes, my attendance did raise a few eyebrows. I used the opportunity to revisit both of the city's cathedrals, and it struck me that both buildings very much track the prosperity of that great city through the 20th century. Liverpool Anglican Cathedral represents a desire by Victorian and Edwardian grandees to build the largest cathedral in the country, with the largest pipe organ to boot. Whereas Liverpool's Catholic Cathedral had similar ambitions to be the second largest church in the world, with the largest dome, but had to be scaled back to a more modest, modern structure when Britain's financial difficulties after the war became very apparent. And you can see similar juxtapositions across towns and cities in the north of England, impressive Victorian town halls standing alongside more modest buildings as areas became less affluent. So what application does this story of transition have for building strong community life? First, let's examine a more recent economic transition. In the 1980s, the late noble lady Baroness Thatcher's government moved away from the previous model for funding Britain's coal industry, where high state subsidies kept the sector afloat. Privatisation had many merits, but the process had a devastating impact on the communities involved, and the way the transition was handled has been a source of regret for the architects of these changes. The noble Lord Tebbit, for example, wrote the following in 2009, which is worth quoting at length. Those mining communities had good working class values and a sense of family values. Many of these communities were completely devastated. The scale of the closures went too far. The damage done to these communities was enormous. In this one example, we can see how very rapid economic change, while potentially necessary on a macro level, can have very dramatic negative impacts on a local level. The key is to properly manage the transition. For this specific sector, I would draw your Lordship's attention to the Coalfields Regeneration Trust, which has done tremendous work supporting the towns and villages affected by the pit closures. I now turn to the present day. Our society is facing 2 profound economic changes. The first, much discussed in this House, including in my noble friend Lord Sharma's passionate maiden speech, is the transition to a net zero economy. The second, very much under-discussed, are advances in automation and AI. At this year's TUC Congress in Brighton, one I sadly didn't attend, it was notable that both the GMB and Unite unions raised strong concerns about the net zero transition on the grounds that there are not, as yet, equally skilled and equivalently paid jobs for workers in the oil and gas sector to transition to. They described the government's proposals for North Sea production and the extending of the Energy Profits Levy as premature and irresponsible, and their position was summarised in the pithy slogan, "No ban without a plan." Rather than merely considering the net zero transition on a national level, we therefore need to have a much more honest conversation about the impact of this transition on individuals, families and communities on a local level. This transition will not only affect Scotland, we're already seeing the effect in Wales, where Port Talbot saw the loss of 2,800 jobs earlier this year, and in communities right across the country, often in areas which are already poorer than average. We therefore need to factor in these societal consequences when we discuss the net zero transition. We also need to consider the effect that automation and AI will have on the economy and our society. Elon Musk at the UK's AI Safety Summit in 2023 predicted that there will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you want to, for your personal satisfaction, but AI will be able to do everything else. A recent report from the Institute for Public Policy Research suggested that without adequate management, the AI transition could result in 8 million job losses and no benefit to GDP. And their best case scenario, though, was the no job losses and a 13% boost to GDP. My Lords, I'm confident that we can ensure the best case scenario occurs, but the transition will require careful thought and proper planning, otherwise the impact on community life will indeed be grim. More broadly, we need to do more to properly acknowledge the positive role that the business community plays in creating prosperity and engendering social cohesion. After all, economic transition is one of the biggest changes facing the country. Strong, supportive communities are immensely important to us all, but unless we properly acknowledge the crucial role of the business community in our society, we'll be ignoring an essential glue that binds us together. The businesses who pay our wages, the businesses who pay tax to fund our public services, the businesses who train people and offer them a ladder of opportunity. This is why we must always remember that successful societies require successful businesses.
Yeah.